Welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right into it. Picture the swamplands of West Bengal. We're talking about a place where the familiar fields just end and this dense, totally unforgiving jungle takes over. Now, during the day, the paths here are totally fine, comforting even. But the second that sun sets, the rules change completely. The paths kind of shift, the shadows stretch out, and those voices you hear calling from the darkness, yeah, they don't always belong to the living. Today we are unpacking a really fascinating, honestly terrifying legend and breaking down one of Eastern India's most chilling folklore mysteries. So let's kick things off with a really simple question. In the dead of night, if someone calls your name, will you open the door? I mean, it seems like an easy yes if it's a voice you recognize, right? Why wouldn't you? Well, the source material we're exploring today suggests that opening that door might literally be the last thing you ever do. We are going to dissect the anatomy of a centuries-old curse. All right, Section 1, the disappearance and the rule. So, to understand the rules here, we first have to understand the Nishi itself. The word translates roughly to a spirit of the night. The folklore describes it as this hungry spirit born from an unmourned death. But here's the thing, it doesn't just physically attack you. No, it's way smarter than that. It weaponizes human emotion. It calls out in the exact voice of someone you love. And, this is exactly what happened to Ramlal, who was just an ordinary farmer from Danapur. His wife, Savitri, had passed away 10 years prior. So after a decade of just bone-crushing loneliness, Ramlal heard her voice calling his name from the dark fields. And his loneliness completely overpowered the village rules. He followed the voice. The next morning, villagers found his shovel and his flashlight, but Ramlal was just gone. And this brings us to a really fascinating clash of worlds. Enter Rajan, Ramlal's 28-year-old son. For the last 8 years, Rajan has been living in Kolkata, working as a journalist. So his entire world is built on logic, reason, and fast-paced city life. But when the police tell him his father just wandered off, Rajan is forced to head back to Danipur. And Danipur is a place still very much governed by village rules, folklore, and curses. The locals are already whispering that his dad's disappearance is the work of the Nishi. Now, as you might expect, Rajan's logical, journalist mind immediately rejects this whole idea. But just being back in the village triggers a memory for him. He remembers a warning his dad gave him years ago, outlining this incredibly strict survival protocol. And this is absolutely crucial. It's the core mechanic of the entire folklore. Step 1, listen carefully. Step 2, count the calls. Step 3, and this is the big one, do not open the door until the third call. Why? Well, according to the myth, the Nishi has one fatal flaw. It can only call your name twice. If you hear a third call, it's guaranteed to be a real human. But if you follow that voice before the third call, you're never coming back. Moving right along to Section 2, the primary evidence. So, Rajan is searching for answers, right? He applies his investigative logic to his own childhood home, and he actually uncovers a hidden diary. It belonged to his mother, Savitri, who, remember, had vanished mysteriously exactly 10 years earlier. In her diary, she wrote that a voice sounding exactly like her own mother had been calling her from outside night after night, but she never opened the door because it only ever called twice. Then, Rajan reads the final, super haunting entry. Today, she called 3 times. I opened the door. And the rest of the diary is entirely blank. The supernatural protocol was literally right there in writing. His mom had fallen victim to the exact same thing. And then, literally that very night, Rajan's strict, logical worldview completely shatters. He's alone in this dark, empty house, and he hears it. His father's voice calling his name from outside. Rajan, Rajan. He waits. He's sweating, pressing himself against the wall. He counts. 1, 2, and then total silence. The voice only calls twice. His father's warning was real. The Nishi is real. Which brings us to Section 3, the origin of the curse. You see, we have to ask, where did this nightmare actually come from? Rajan goes to his village grandmother to figure out the origin, and he learns that this isn't just some random ghost attacking random villagers. No, this is a highly targeted intergenerational curse. It's like a terrifying family heirloom. It started with Rajan's great-grandmother, then moved to his grandmother, then his mother, Savitri, then his father, Ramlal. And now, Rajan is the final surviving target in this bloodline.
And here's the tragic backstory as to why. 30 years ago, a woman named Kamala lost her entire family to drowning. But instead of showing her any compassion, the village blamed her. They claimed she had an evil eye. One night, she was terribly sick, soaking wet in the freezing rain, and Kamala went from house to house just begging for help. Every single door was shut on her, including, you guessed it, the door of Rajan's great-grandfather. Kamala wandered out into the fields and died completely alone. Her body was never found, no funeral was held, nobody mourned her. And from that profound societal guilt and cruelty, the legend says the Nishi was born, vowing that the doors of those who ignored her would remain shut forever.
Okay, but Rajan is a man of action. He wants to actually fix this. According to his grandmother, there is a way to break the curse. He has to go to the lone peepal tree out in the East Fields, which is the exact spot Kamala died and, ironically, where his father was last seen. He has to offer a pure, heartfelt apology and acknowledge the sheer inhumanity of his ancestors. And Rajan does exactly this. In the broad daylight, he stands before that tree and sincerely apologizes for the village's cruelty. Almost instantly, the heavy dread lifts. He goes home, eats a meal, and for the first time since arriving, he sleeps peacefully.
All right, Section 4, the climax and the twist.
Well, as it turns out, forgiveness isn't always that simple. Rajan wakes up in the middle of the night. A voice is calling him again. But it's not his father this time. It's the warm, incredibly familiar voice of his mother, Savitri, who disappeared a decade ago. Rajan, Rajan. He waits. He remembers the survival protocol. And then he hears a third call. Rajan. The number 3. The ultimate safety net. The rule explicitly dictates that if it calls 3 times, it's completely safe. It's human. Overwhelmed by just a son's desperate love for his mom, his emotions completely override his logic, and he opens the door.
So, here's the massive million-dollar question we have to ask. Did the Nishi somehow learn to call 3 times? I mean, how did a centuries-old curse suddenly bypass its own absolute rule? It's a brilliant but terrifying subversion of everything Rajan thought he knew.
The answer is, well, it's horrifying. When Rajan opens the door, there is absolutely no one outside. But then he hears footsteps behind him. He turns around to see his father standing inside the house. Except his father's eyes are completely empty. And then it hits him. The house was locked all day. His father didn't just walk in. The Nishi didn't learn to call 3 times at all. The mother's voice outside, that was just a decoy. It was an auditory illusion meant to prey on his grief. The Nishi was using his father's hollowed-out body as a Trojan horse. It wasn't trying to lure Rajan out into the dark. It was tricking Rajan into opening the door so the darkness could step out of the shadows from inside his own home.
The next morning, his uncle stops by to visit the house, but it's completely empty. Rajan is gone, his father is gone. The only single thing left on the floor is Rajan's diary, and it contains this final entry which completely cements the Nishi's ultimate victory. Amma called 3 times. I opened. No one outside. Baba was inside, but not Baba. His logic failed. The curse won.
And finally, Section 5, the enduring moth.
So, why does this whole thing hit so hard? Why does it resonate? The Nishi Dak isn't just a spooky ghost story. This is a centuries-old folklore that continues to thrive across West Bengal, Bihar, and Jharkhand even today. It's deeply, deeply rooted in the psychology of rural isolation. It taps into our primal fear of the dark, the really heavy burden of societal guilt, and just the universal human vulnerability to grief and loneliness. It's a stark reminder that sometimes our strongest emotions can actually be our fatal flaws. Believe it or not, even today in these regions, people still rigorously count the calls before they'll unlatch their doors at night. We've unpacked the anatomy of this terrifying legend today, and we've seen how it masterfully uses human nature against itself. So I want to leave you with this one final, provocative thought. Knowing everything you now know about the rules of the night, the weight of the past, and the ultimate deception of the Nishi, if you hear your name called in the dead of night, how many times will you count?